I'm so glad you're here. I truly appreciate it. Now, you're not too far from me, right? You're up the road over there in Georgetown?
In Georgetown. Yep.
Georgetown, Kentucky. That's what I'm talking about. So, Samantha, I am excited to introduce you to all the Rise and Grind members and share your story a little bit. I do want to start, though. You're in healthcare, right?
Yes, I'm a registered nurse at the University of Kentucky, but I work primarily over at the college now teaching nursing students.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you, especially in times like these. Like, I really, really appreciate you going out there and fighting the good fight for us.
Yeah, well, I work from home a lot now through with Zoom with my students, so they don't really want a lot of students in the hospital currently.
Yeah.
So yeah, spend a lot of time on Zoom.
What an incredible time that we live in, right? To where we have these
Yeah.
resources and this ability to train and do things through video. What a blessing.
Yes, for sure it is. If not, they would have had to redo the whole semester probably.
Right. Super, super cool. Well, thank you for serving us. I really, truly, truly appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about you and your family dynamics that you've got going on over there in Georgetown.
I live here in Scott County. We've been here for 20 years. I'm originally from Eastern Kentucky. Me and my husband live here, and I have a daughter that is 11, and I have a son that's 18. And we've been living here, like I said, for 20 years now. And I've been at UK for 20 years. So
wow. So you've been in healthcare for 20 years.
20 years.
Nice.
I know.
And you've got an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old, is that right?
18-year-old, yeah.
18-year-old. So what's it like having them home and no school and all that? How's that going for you?
It's interesting. The 11-year-old, Katie does well. My son doesn't do as well. He's just kind of going stir crazy. It's his senior year of high school. So, he's missing out on a lot of stuff. So he's pretty bummed about that.
Yeah, man,
But,
that's gotta be a little tough.
yeah.
Being the senior year.
Yeah, we're making it work. We make it work.
You make it work, right? That's right. That's right. So let's go back in time a little bit. Right now, you've got an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old, and they're home, and you're doing the healthcare thing. But let's go back. I guess it was 7 years ago when Katie
It was in 2000. Yeah, she was 4. It was in 2013 in October.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So, I'll just kind of give you a Reader's Digest version of it. It was a long journey to get her to where she is. So in October of 2013, we had just had a massive birthday weekend. My birthday was that weekend. My son's birthday was that weekend. And I had left to go to UK for just a little bit. It was on a Sunday. And as I was starting to come home, I got a call from one of my neighbors. So Katie, when I left the house, Katie was in her room watching a video. My son was on the couch, and my husband was getting ready to mow the grass. So it was we had a huge, party weekend, and this was a very normal, relaxing Sunday. Everybody's kind of going to do their own thing. And it turned out to be nothing of the sort. So one of my neighbors called me very frantically as I was heading back from Lexington, saying that Katie had been in an accident. And it just really didn't make any sense to me, because what I left was not an environment you could have an accident in. Nobody was going anywhere. They weren't going to be in a car. We don't have a lot of, dangerous items laying around or anything like that. So I really couldn't even understand what she was saying. So I finally got it out of her that she said that Katie had been backed over by a riding lawnmower. And that's still, you could have told me that they had shot, my son to the moon, and it would have made more sense to me than thinking that someone had actually been ran over by a lawnmower. So I knew, being a nurse at UK, that was probably where she was headed. I couldn't get anybody to answer the phone anywhere. So I headed back to UK, since it's, the trauma center, and I waited there. They knew she was coming. They already knew she was coming. So I waited there on them to show up with her. So when they showed up with her, it was pretty significant. Her injuries were pretty significant to her right leg.
Yeah.
So
especially being in healthcare, daughter's been in this accident, run over from Mower. You see her, like, what's running through your head right there at that moment?
It was there's parts of this that kind of fade in and out of my mind, and then there's parts that always stick. I always remember what she looked like when she came in. She never did lose consciousness. She was awake still. And so it always reminds me of, if you see on these shows, like a woman having a C-section, they have this big drape up. So they put me up at the head of her bed where they brought her in. And it was just me and her there, a million doctors. and she was still awake. She didn't speak to me or anything. So, she was alive, but she was super pale, very cold. And then I asked if I could see her injuries.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see anything, because you just can't visualize exactly what you're dealing with. And, I don't know if any mom would have asked, or if it's because I was a nurse, I don't know, but I wanted to see what her leg looked like.
Yeah.
And the nurse tried to talk me out of that. She just really did not want me to see that. And the physician was like, let her see. Right. So they did. And what I saw was just not anything that was going to be salvaged at all.
Yeah.
It was from her knee to her groin on her right leg was severely damaged.
Wow.
Severely. Yeah.
Wow. So here you guys are. It's just a normal weekend. We're getting ready to party it up. We're getting ready to have a good time. You run over to the hospital real quick, run a quick errand, and all of a sudden, boom, everything changes.
Everything changes.
Right?
Yeah, everything changes.
Everything changes. So she's in the hospital. She recovers as far as health-wise, but this leg is not good.
I did not expect them at all to come back and tell me that she still had her leg, but they did. And she actually kept her leg for 18 months afterwards. We did a lot. She had 21 surgeries before we finally decided to amputate.
Wow.
Just different, she was just missing a lot of pieces and a lot of physical therapy.
She's
21 surgeries. She's 4. Yeah. Her 22nd one was her amputation.
Wow.
So we took her a lot of places. If you're a nurse and you have a child that's your patient, you become very resourceful.
Yeah, I bet
you turn into the FBI every night. I would I had her medical records and I would just shoot them to some doctor in Texas and say, can you help me? You're a physician in New York, would review her medical records. We took her to Boston Children's Hospital a couple of times, took her to Cincinnati.
Right.
Just anything, trying to fix any part of this.
Wow. So you guys are fighting like crazy. You're a nurse. You've got the resources. You've got the documents. You've got the paperwork. You know what's going on. You're hitting this doctor up. You're hitting this doctor up. You guys want her to have a normal leg. You want it to work. You want it to function. And you're fighting like crazy for that. She goes through 21 surgeries. And then finally you reach a point and you're like, we got to let this go.
Yeah, the last time we went to Cincinnati or Boston was in 2015 in July, and we met with a physician up there. He was an older gentleman, and I remember the last thing he said, because we were just gung-ho, we're not amputating her leg. Like, I always know this is on the table.
Sure.
But you just want to do it. You want to take her back to what she was.
Right.
You had a child and had the same visions that everybody does. She's going to play soccer, and you're going to have a pet, and you're going to do all these things, and you just want to go back to there. So you'll just do anything to get back there. So he said, you probably need to find a team of physicians closer. And I remember asking him, can you not help her? And he said, I can help her, but she's going to need a lot of surgeries and I won't live that long. That was what he said. And so I remember him saying that. And then, we just kind of got up and left the room, and that was it. We were totally done. There really wasn't a conversation past that point.
Yeah.
I realized then that she was going to be doing that for 10 years and it was going to take up her entire childhood.
Right.
And so what I was trying to accomplish in salvaging her leg was going to turn her into a lifelong patient.
Yeah.
And we just could not do that. So we made the decision very instantly to let go so that she could move forward.
Yeah.
But we were holding her back. We were holding her back from living.
Right. I think that's super powerful. It falls right in line with what we've been talking about this week. I like how, you said you guys were like determined, like you wanted it to be like it was, right? You were stuck in this place where mentally you're like, we just need to get back to how she was and how things were.
Yeah.
And you fought for that for so long. Now we let go. They take the leg. What happens to your family dynamics at that point?
Well, there was several things happened during that time frame. One, we really lived under, not because of our family, we had so much support, had a ton of support, but you kind of just mentally yourself live under this weird dark cloud. Like, when you're out in the grocery store with her, she had this full leg brace on all those years. And, everybody asks her what happened to it. And she tells them,
right.
And it's always so shocking. And then they look at you just like, oh gosh, and so you go from being this normal person that has, like I was a normal functioning nurse, tried really hard just to be a good person, to being, you just get looked at kind of odd.
Sure.
And you understand why. Like when she says I got ran over by a lawnmower, you don't really have much to follow that up with. It's the
Right.
truth,
Right.
and she was 4 or 5 years old, so she would just say it every time.
Right.
So we were asked to be on the news multiple times. Amber Philpott with WLEX, she reached out to us a couple of times to do a story on lawnmower safety.
Right.
And I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to get on the news and say this is what not to do. But her intentions were good, but I just said, no, thank you. We're not going to do that. Right about the exact same time, actually, as we decided to amputate her leg, there was a lady in Florida that reached out to us about doing a public service announcement on lawnmower safety, and it was through the Amputee Coalition of America.
Okay.
So we did decide to do that, and we went down there and we joined some other families to do this public service announcement. It just seemed like the time was right to maybe, plus we had this other little group of people that had been through the same thing.
Sure.
So we went down there and did that. They released the public service announcement to us probably in August or September of that year, just a couple months after we decided to amputate. We hadn't amputated yet. We were going to give Katie about 6 months is what we decided, give her 6 months to meet some other amputees, take care of things at school, stuff like that.
Sure.
So I remember the morning, it was a Sunday again, and I was laying in the bed drinking my coffee, and I got this email from the lady that was releasing this public service announcement to me. And it's mine. I do with it as I wish. Right. I can let the other families release it. I can go on about my business, whatever. And I watched it, and it was exactly what I was told it was going to be. It was very shocking. It had her family on there, telling what had happened, telling what not to do. Had Katie on there. It was very dramatic. Mm-hmm. And so it was about 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and I flipped through my phone, and I had saved Amber Philpott's phone number. And I messaged her, and I said, I don't know if you remember me or not, but if you're still willing to talk to us, I would like for you to play this public service announcement.
Gotcha.
And so I send it to her. And, one thing that's weird about this story that I don't touch on very much, because it's not a pleasant part of it, is how many times I begged and prayed for something to happen. Mm-hmm. Please don't let her get an infection. And she got an infection anyway.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever had to pray for something very specifically over and over and over, and none of it happened.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened that I needed to happen with her.
Right.
Please send me a physician. Please send me anything, and it would not happen. So when I sent this to her, I remember sitting there in the bed thinking, I don't even know what to pray for anymore.
Right.
Everything I pray for doesn't happen. Somehow I'm not doing this right. So my hope at that point was, tell me how to stand in the middle of this story. Tell me how to tell this story, and it not just always be a dark cloud hanging over my family. Tell me how to get to the other side of this. Just give me the tools and I'll do it. If you'll just tell me how to stand in this story and own it and move on.
Yeah.
And she called me back just a few minutes later. And then that was really a huge turning point for us. Actually, we were on the news. We told our story. Most of it went really well. But there was some backlash from that. You put yourself out there just you have. But, if you're on Facebook and everybody knows your name, they can send you a private message.
No doubt.
And so I got a lot of positive messages like, I'm not going to let my kid ride on the mower, or I won't let my kid outside anymore because I saw your story. But you also get the ones that says, you're a horrible parent.
Right.
Why did you ever have children?
Sure.
And so, but the whole time, every time I would get a comment that would set me back, I would say, you chose this. You decided to stand in the middle of this story and tell this story. Keep telling it. And I would just chisel forward very, very slowly, chisel forward. But we did, move forward. For Katie, she had her amputation in December of that year. It was very instant for her. Instant, like I couldn't explain. So instant that it was really hard for us to keep up with on the way her life changed. Mm-hmm. She got her first prosthetic in January. Just 5 weeks later, she had a walking leg.
Right. And
we came back from Florida on a Saturday, and she went back to school on Monday. And her life went completely back to normal.
Wow.
Completely back to normal. And then for us, it was like, what the heck just happened here?
Right.
But she moved forward very quickly from that point. Yeah.
Amazing. Adaptable, right? Like she was like, let's just go. I'm gonna trudge on forward. This is what I got. No big deal. And then here we are as the adults and as the parents, we're in that state of worry. We're praying for things. They're not getting answered. We're getting the backlash. And that's real that's real life. You said very many, you said quite a few profound things in there. One, standing in the storm, right? Standing in the storm and understanding that, hey, this is what we chose and this is where we're gonna stand, and finding strength in that. I think that's powerful. I love that you said, hey, God, let's use this so it's a light, not a dark cloud, right? It's still a storm either way, but it doesn't have to be a dark cloud. It can be the rainbows that are in the storm. I love how you touched on that. And I'm so thankful that you guys continued to just push through all that. But it's so true. When you start to lead, when you put yourself in a leadership position, when you expose yourself, it's one of the most dangerous positions for a human being to be in, because now you're under constant scrutiny and attack, right? And I could see that, and you guys' situation with the accident with your husband and so on and so forth, I could see people being ugly in that situation. So let's fast forward. She progresses. She's rocking and rolling. She goes from walking to running and jumping. I noticed on your profile, you see tons of pictures of you and your daughter, and you guys are like running. And from what I understand, you've run the Boston Marathon. Is that right?
I have, yeah. And up until 2 weeks ago, I was training to run it a second time. It's been postponed.
Right.
But yeah, Katie got her first running leg about 5 months after she got her walking leg. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really know any amputees. I had no idea what their capabilities were or whatever, but she instantly took to running. And at that time, she was 7. So she ran her first 5K at 7 years old.
Wow.
So, we kind of went from a place of not wanting to be in any kind of spotlight. We were just kind of settling in and just trying to whatever. But she really, like I said, that first year especially, she just skyrocketed, and everything she touched turned to gold for her. It really did, and it was nothing that we did. It was nothing like that. It was just a miracle. Like I said, she ran her first 5K, and if you have a 7-year-old running 5Ks, you get a lot of attention. She gets a lot of attention. So like, she was on CNN, she was in People magazine, all these people wanted to take her picture. And the whole time she's just, she's very charismatic anyway, very bubbly, very sweet, but really she was focused on running. That was the only thing she was focused on. So, now, this many years later, she's ran over 30 5Ks. She runs continually, and she does sprints, and now she's just continually in the spotlight for some reason that has nothing to do with me. It's just all her doing.
That's incredible. And now, and so when you say that, I think, especially with the theme this week, I think about how your choice to finally let go, right? We're going to let go of the flesh. We're going to let go of the leg and allow her to move forward and be free, right? Your choice. If you would have went the other way, then here she would be 11 now. You would still be inspiring people, and you're inspiring people, and you're sharing your story. It's really incredible. So I know Katie's probably sleeping right now, right? Or she's probably doing something like that. But let me ask you this for the viewers that are watching this morning, and as we continue to turn what once was a dark cloud into something really bright and brilliant, what do you think she would say right now this morning? If she was on the show, what would she say to the people that are watching or that are listening, to inspire or encourage them?
Gosh, that's hard. She's really different. She's been interviewed several times before about different things, and she normally just says that the adults just make too big of a fuss about it. That she just doesn't see her life. She's met a ton of really interesting people because of it. And she just does her own thing. Yeah. So she would probably just tell you that she's just like anybody else is. Only she has a much cooler leg than you do. She's really just never had any trouble adapting to this situation. We had trouble adapting, but she never had any trouble adapting.
Yeah. And I think that, I think she would be right in saying adults make too much of a fuss about it. I don't think that in her saying that, I don't think that would refer just to a leg. I think that would refer to a lot of things in life that we do as adults, right? We get really stuck in a spot and we fuss about the things that we can't control, the things that may ultimately lead us to a cooler leg, right? But we fuss and we hang on. So I'm going to ask you the same question now. So Katie would tell us not to make too much of a big fuss about these things. What would you tell everybody now that you've been, you've been through this, and you're 7 years in, you guys are rocking and rolling. So what kind of words of wisdom and encouragement would you have for people? Obviously, we've got people going through a lot of storms
Gosh.
right
So,
now,
it's, yeah, it's really hard, because I can look at where I am right now and see that I'm a completely different person than I was 7 years ago. My whole family is, good parts and bad parts. There's a quote that I always try to live by at this point, and I'm not a huge quote person, but it's a Bob Goff quote. In the beginning of it, says to embrace uncertainty. And so that's kind of what leads me now, is you just kind of have to embrace it and see where it takes you. And just, it's going to take you down some dark roads, but the dark roads can't always stay that way. You'll always come out of it inevitably. Sure. In some form or fashion. Sure. So I really just try to embrace the things that I don't really have any control over anyway, and just make the best out of it. So that's what I try to tell, others to do. And that's what I try to live by now, is just to embrace it.
Yeah. Embrace the uncertainty, step into it, let go, right? Let go of some of these things, man. That's incredible. Over on so I'm going to shift over just a little bit. Let's go back to you. So were you a runner before? You weren't a runner before?
No. So me and my neighbor, my girlfriend, we decided, we were getting older, and that was in the same year, 2013. We thought, we're going to run 1 5K a month for the whole year.
Wow.
But a 5K is 3 miles.
Right.
And so really it's not, we trained for it, but it really wasn't like a real training type deal. But when Katie started running, I had to run with her because she was small. So I had to run all these different races with her. So I started running some, but I still don't call myself a runner, because I don't feel like a runner. As it, like,
you just ran a Boston Marathon, but
you're not
a runner.
It was on a charity event. So Katie has always been obsessed with the Boston Marathon. I took her to watch it one year. She just thought it was an amazing thing. We're affiliated with an organization called 50 Legs that pays for Katie's running blade, and they have a charity team. So a lot of charities have teams that run the marathon to raise money. And last year they had asked me to run it, and I was just like, you do realize, like, I'm a 40-year-old nurse and I don't really run. Like, I'm not a runner. So I kind of just said no. Katie found out that I said no to the Boston Marathon, and she just couldn't believe it. Right. She, for her, this is like the end all be all. Why would you do that? She watched it. We'd watched it on TV. We'd watched it in real life. And she said, if you'll run the Boston Marathon, I will train for a 10K. Which is double what she had ran before. Right. So 10K for she was 9 at the time. That's a long distance. It's 6 miles.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just standing there, and really there's not a whole lot of thought process to put into that. I've got this kid looking at me that's got a running blade on. She don't even have a knee. And she says, I'll train for a 10K
right.
if you'll run the Boston Marathon. And I'm like, okay.
What's your excuse at that point?
Yeah. So I'm like, sure. Sign me up. So she and I trained, together, and I ran the Boston Marathon. And then this past November, she ran her 10K. And then I just decided after that, I do have 2 legs, and I am a healthy person. I'm still not a runner. I'm not a runner.
Sure.
But 50 Legs will give me a charity bib if I'll raise so much money. That money goes to somebody like Katie. There was somebody years before me that ran these races that enabled her to have a running blade. And that running blade changed her whole life. It totally changed her whole life. It changed my whole life for having it. So, I'll have to keep running to raise money for them, I guess, until I just can't run anymore.
Right. I think that's really strong and powerful. Like, even if we don't want to do it for ourselves, knowing that there have been people that have led the way before us to give us the opportunity we have today, and our responsibility on the other side of that to be able to pay that forward for other people. What a powerful motivator that is, right? That and a daughter with no knee looking at you going.